So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and I think it's been just over a week, at least at the time when this releases, since the last video I posted up, which I believe is actually the longest gap that I've gone through ever since I started posting videos up on YouTube with regularity just over 2 years ago. So, yeah, in response to that, it will be a longer video, a larger siege, of course, on Rivendell. So I did mention quite some time ago that I had a lot of Rivendell sieges sent to me all at once, so this is actually a replay from quite some time ago. I think back towards the beginning of March this one was sent to me, but I don't recognise the armies that were a part of this one, so this one definitely hasn't been one that's been shown, at least on my channel. Maybe Scouts has shown it, but I don't know. So regardless, this is going to be a large siege of Rivendell, which always seemed to go down quite well. Certainly this version of Rivendell is far superior to the old version that was in vanilla. WK definitely worked his magic on this one. A lot more space, a lot more dynamic elements that can happen throughout the battle, a lot more paths that you can go through, but it is still ultimately a siege battle which is based pretty heavily on choke points, at least around the outer defences, and by the time we start to get into the more open areas in the middle here, the battle is already swinging pretty heavily one way or the other. But like I said previously, we will be going through the army compositions a little bit more quickly because this is still on 0.96.1. Hopefully now that the university stuff has passed by a little bit more, hopefully I will be able to get involved a little bit more myself in some of these things. I'm not quite out of the woods yet, there are still a few bits and pieces I need to sort out, but at least I will be able to start posting videos again. And then I think next week, when I'm fully done with everything, around the same time Three Kingdoms comes out actually, I should be able to get involved with a few more things, both with this and hopefully with Three Kingdoms. Hopefully Three Kingdoms does turn out to be pretty decent. We shall see. But Hunter Wayward is the one that did send me this replay quite some time ago, and he will be playing as Umbar with some upgraded Belagai footmen here at the front. Slightly heavier chain that they are wearing to denote their upgraded status, but still basic spears in 0.96.1. They will not do a lot of damage. They can survive pretty well, especially with their armour upgrades, and they can push through lines if the line is on the thinner side with their shield wall formation, as spears can do, but they aren't up to the same standard as the Black Legion or the Blackwatch Legion when it comes to matters like that. Some upgraded Corsair infantry as well, so he's gone for the armour upgrades on perhaps some of his cheaper units, which is not too common from Umbar in 0.96.1. The Corsair infantry, I think, is the only Corsair unit that will be surviving the transition into 0.97, as Umbar become much more focused around their quality Black Numenorian units. They will actually lose the vast majority of their Corsair units. I think the crossbows are going to stay as well, although I'm not entirely sure about that. And yeah, that does transform Umbar rather into a fully quality-focused faction, which certainly is in contrast to the rest of the evil men, who can all field fairly large armies. That will not be the case for Umbar anymore, but it does at least give them even more of a sense of identity. This is the sort of unit we will be seeing a lot of from Umbar moving forward, as we do in the current patch anyway, so not a great deal will change in terms of the meta, I think. Castamir's Legion, or the Alcarondas Legion as they will be known. Fantastic line infantry unit. Very few factions can field a unit that is better than the Castamir's Legion, being a sort of basic line infantry unit anyway. Corsair infantry upgraded. Corsair fencers, they will be, I think, taken out and put in the Rebels faction as well. Corsair archers will be gone. The Castamir's Rangers will of course stay. Corsair fencers, and of course the lack of Corsairs will put more emphasis on the Belagai units and the Abrazanim units as well. So the Abrazanim here with both levels of armour upgrades. The Nardu Bawi were actually viable in 0.96.1, which, considering the kind of unit they are, is quite odd, but they will be much stronger in 0.97 as a result of the archer rebalancing. Numenorian Shield Guard, they of course will remain as well. Very good spears on the more expensive end of things, which again in 0.97 they should be a little bit more worthwhile to bring. More Abrazanim, more Corsair archers, and then towards the back here we have the Naaru Royal Guard, which actually I think are going to be changed as well a little bit in the future for Umbar. I think they will go from being a bodyguard unit to being more of a generalised archer, in the same vein as the veterans of Osgiliath, which will of course mean they are substantially cheaper to bring, but they won't be the bodyguard tier unit that we know now. But Umbar's elites and their sort of roster is being tweaked around a little bit, but ultimately they will still by and large be the same sort of armies we see from Umbar are going to be the same in 0.97 as well, sort of more quality centric, obviously with very resilient archers and a resilient front line, with a few units that can deal genuine damage, but we'll see. I mean, Umbar could prove to be a little bit more higher skill ceiling perhaps for Umbar in 0.97 with how they're going, but they still will be certainly a wrecking ball when it comes to their infantry power. Then we have Angmar, Keyguard de Strong, who has got some Goblin Band out here in front. Angmar, of course, will remain very much the same in terms of playstyle. Very aggressive, very robust, all about the brute force that they can bring to the battlefield very, very quickly. Guardians of Khan Doom, a big part of that, of course, with their rusted armour. We have the Witch Realm Hammer Guard. I'm going to go through this army pretty quickly because there was a little bit more to talk about with Umbar. Less so with Angmar. So we've got the Guardians of Khan Doom. We have the Witches, of course. Very, very powerful, but of course very, very fragile if archers can get a hold of them. Angmar Marauders, just basic orc units. Witch Realm Scourge Raiders, damaging, but fragile at range. Excuse me. My allergies are certainly getting to me. And then the Trolls. Trolls of Angmar and Gundabad. Very, very good when it comes down to a very messy fight. Then we have SQW123Ju, who is playing as Cardolan, and Cardolan, the one, I guess they've been corrupted by the evil forces of Middle-earth, and they are marching on Angmar with their evil allies. A lot of civilians here, and they are not likely to do well when it comes to a choke point fight. They're going to get absolutely mulched. We do, of course, have some Minuscule Ruthlin archers in the Hearthguard of Amon Sul. Cardolan, decent armour values across their Minuscule Ruthlin units. They will be losing their sort of generic medieval cattle hats going into the next patch, and they will be given a little bit more of a Numenorian look, sort of decrepit Numenor though. So it's almost like they found an old cache of Numenorian armour and they're now using it. We have some Minuscule Ruthlin sharpshooters back here, one of the very key units for Cardolan. Crossbows are certainly one of the main strengths they have, of course, AP and melee. And then back up here we do have the Wardens of Tirn Gorthad, a Trebuchet, which could be very, very useful in this battle provided they get into the right position and use it at the right time. Minotaur Roman Guardians, of course. Mercenary War Chiefs, Merc units, fairly worthwhile to bring as Cardolan. I mean, Cardolan don't really have a heavy swordsman other than this anyway. But obviously the main downside of bringing Mercs is their low morale, but Cardolan have to deal with that anyway. So Cardolan are always going to have morale buffing units on the front line to help the Mercs. And then some Tharbad Warhammers and Dunedain Captains, obviously the elite units. And then finally on the attack, we have Mordor, played by Inarius, who is here in the trees. We have some Orc Fodder. We also have some Orc Archers over here, as well as some Troll Drummers in the trees, some Orc Javelins, Sauron's Will, Black Legion of Barad-dûr, unsurprising of course to push through those lines, Olakai, Minas Morgul Chosen, and then over here the Elites. We have the Temple Executioners without the armour upgrade this time, but they're still so strong anyway. Minas Morgul Bodyguard, and of course the AP Archers of the Temple Guard. Now moving on to the Defenders, and we have Rune, played by Ending Flame 0210, who we haven't seen Rune before on the defence for Rivendell. The Eastron Clansmen with the armour upgrades are quite possibly the strongest, well, I would say they are definitely actually the strongest militia tier unit of fighting in melee against other infantry, particularly with that armour upgrade, of course. And it's something which can certainly give Rune a bit of a leg up in a fight with regards to their infantry power. Some Baltroth Tribesmen are over here as well, obviously cheap javelins, which can be very, very useful. Some Flagrim are up here on the cliff. It does look as though Rune are actually a little bit further back, so they might actually retreat immediately and not defend these outer cliffs, which would be an interesting gambit, although it does look as though he's actually going to send some of his infantry up here. Carmel's Chosen. A lot of people haven't been too complimentary about the Carmel's Chosen lately, but that's to be expected because they are not quite up to the same standard as many of the units that they have been facing lately. You know, it is worth saying that the Carmel's Chosen are not on the same level as something like Witch Realm Hammerguard when it comes to fighting in melee, nor the Witch Realm Blackguard. They are strong, but they are not that strong. Rune have strengths elsewhere, however. The Scion Room, of course, I think, certainly in 0.97 they inspire nearby units, which will be very, very important. Variag Mercenaries, Narim, obviously a big ranged presence, which is quite common on Rivendell, including some Eastron crossbows. The Shadow Bows are in there, of course, and then more of the Golden Boys. Gamprim, I think there are more crossbows in there as well, and then some Flagrim, and more crossbows. Over here, we have Arthedain, played by Son of the Dunedain, so that's quite fitting. Grey Company, of course, Mounted Rangers. Over here we have Lothlorien as well, played by Mark XMD. So some Elves and Arthedain fighting alongside Rune. So Rune and Cardolan have certainly switched places here with regards to the lore friendliness. The Illuminous Gate Guards here, very strong pike unit, of course, a second unit of Grey Company. Sindar Archers, Sylvan Rangers, Mythiel Lasgallan, a couple of units of Dismounted Knights of Illuminous. Warns in the north, so again another armour-piercing archer unit. Dunedain Mounted Company. I don't know how useful these units of cavalry will be. Lothlorien Mounted Company as well. They are lancers, so if they can't escape and get some good charges off, it might be a bit of a waste to bring these expensive units of cavalry, especially the Lothlorien Mounted Company. That's 1,000 florins. Peacekeepers, Arthedain Pikemen. Across the way there's Blades, Sylvan Spears, and there's a lot of Emendim Spearmen as well, which is unsurprising. Good unit for what they cost. Lothlorien Archers and some Galathrim Riders as well as a catapult. So, interesting defensive setup. We'll see how this goes. Some Galathrim Nobles as well. But I will, of course, make a cut because, as most times happens on Rivendell, I'm sure that the attackers will spend quite a bit of time getting their armies into position so that they can move in on the settlement. Interesting move to come out of the settlement here from Lothlorien and Arthedain working in tandem with one another. There were 2 units of Goblin Band that were actually hidden out here, and there you can see the Lothlorien Mounted Company actually threading the needle rather and getting through, and they could actually charge into some of these Angmar units and do some fairly substantial damage. I would imagine that because all these ladders are here, yes, there are lots of Snaga that were hidden. The Angmar army did seem rather small. The Lothlorien Mounted Company will do horrendous damage to the Snaga Stalkers on a charge. You can see there that huge amounts of Snaga falling by the wayside, but they need to get out of here, otherwise they will find themselves trapped. The Goblin Band are retreating back to try and close the jaws, and they are shaken, and you can see here that obviously the Hammer Guard, I think they cause fear, so that will certainly not help matters. They will retreat to the town centre, but they could of course run into the bug where they perpetually rout, and you can see they are dying fairly heftily on the retreat, so a bit gung-ho there from the Lothlorien cavalry. Didn't really pan out. And it's all about battlefield awareness. You can see all of these ladders here. It's obvious that Angmar are going to have more hidden units because they have a very small army that is visible. And Angmar, you know, they have got a decent amount of hidden units. All the units that they can field that can hide are generally low-tier units, but they can have a lot of them. And a single unit of cavalry like that can fall into that trap where they just get surrounded and pulled off their horses by tons and tons of lower-tier units. They have come back from routing the Lothlorien Mounted Company, but Angmar will certainly take that trade. Snaga are completely disposable. Lothlorien Mounted Company, however, they are very expensive. 1,000 florins is a lot of value to bring down, and about 700 florins worth those Snaga are able to bring down. You can see here the Evendim archers firing point blank into the Goblin Band, doing a decent job at bringing them down. But again, Angmar won't mind too much as long as their better units are not taking this arrow fire. They will accept that. The Goblin Band do have shields. I mean, they're obviously very poor quality. They're basically planks of wood, sections of barrels that have been cut off and are now being used as makeshift shields. But yeah, I mean, the Evendim archers have been able to do a decent amount of damage to the Goblin Band. They are now going to have to retreat back inside Rivendell, back to the relative safety where their infantry can come and support them if needs be. And of course, if this turns into an infantry engagement, Angmar will lose what remains of their Goblin Band for basically no reason. Oh, excuse me. It is allergy season. Snaga Stalkers are coming forward in support as well, I think. Yeah, no, there's no Goblin Band going around this way, but Angmar do need to be a little bit careful here. They don't want to charge in too quickly. You can see here the Evendim archers are kiting back the Goblin Band, continuing to shoot them, and I assume this is in a ploy to keep the Goblin Band moving forward, and eventually when they get close enough, infantry will then be able to clean them up very, very easily. Of course, Goblin Band are very, very poor in melee. They are going to charge forward here and once again force the Evendim archers into retreat, but they are also absorbing a little bit of arrow fire here, which will be good not only for Angmar, but also for all of Angmar's allies. You can see that Angmar are actually pushing forward some of their units. The Barrow Wights are here, which in 0.96.1 is always a bit of a power play from Angmar. It's a very difficult thing to deal with. But all of the defensive factions have got rangers, they've got crossbows, they might have Dunedain Troll Slayers as well. I know they've got Mighty Earlaz Gallants. They have a lot of ranged tools to do a lot of damage to the Barrow Wights very, very quickly. We'll see how well that pans out though. Snaga Stalkers are here, the Goblin Band are in loose formation, so yeah, I think I will continue the cut here because that was a fairly short cut as the Lothlorien cavalry came out. Actually, no, I won't, because Angmar are going to move in, which is surprising. The Evendim archers are shooting into the flank of them, which may be what is convincing them of the need to move forward, but there's really no need. If you stay there and absorb the arrow fire, that is a more worthwhile use of your time than charging into melee here, because the Goblin Band is going to get absolutely ripped apart by the Dunedain Peacekeepers and the Arthedain Pikemen. Dunedain Peacekeepers, as far as Spearmen goes, are one of the better examples in 0.96.1. That Dunedain skill. They have slightly less armour than perhaps some of their contemporaries, but still. A lot of good skill, good shield value, and of course they're going to be easily able to beat Goblin Band, which of course are spears as well, so both of them are subject to that spear malus. Evendim archers are firing into the Snaga Stalkers in loose formation, which to my mind is actually a bit of a waste as well. Snaga Stalkers, at least one of these Snaga Stalker units is free, and they've already been the cause of a lot of death for the Lothlorien Mounted Company. And now they're also absorbing more arrow fire. It may only be from Evendim archers, but it is these small margins which the defenders have to work to. Resource management for the defenders is a little bit more important than it is for the attackers, especially when the attackers have got a lot of disposable troops that they can bring to the field. There you can see the Goblin Band, they're shaken, they're going to try and retreat. I'm actually surprised they didn't rout on the retreat there. Good on them. Let's go have a look over here actually. Rune have set up pretty much their entire army over here now. And they have done, we have seen something similar to this before where they sort of front load their defence a little bit more perhaps. But I think sort of defending this part here is the best way to go, because it gives you a little, makes it a little bit closer to the archers, gives them a little bit easier of a shot. And also it means that the reinforcements are just that little bit closer. We'll see. A bit of a gap there in the rocks. Yeah, so the Goblin Band, they are actually going to escape and they're not going to rout, which, that surprises me actually. Sturdy goblins. Resolute indeed. Yeah, I think now is the time for another little cut. So here we go, the engagements are really going to happen on both sides of the river now, as the Variag mercenaries have forward positioned themselves over near this bridge, and the Orc archers are moving forward. Mordor and Angmar actually find themselves in a rather interesting situation, because they certainly have, in terms of their rosters, more fodder and sort of more disposable units, but I would say as well that considering the armies they've brought, they also have the scarier units, the scarier elite units, the Hammer Guard, the Temple Executioners, which means Umbar and Cardlin definitely sort of make up the middle section of the quality of all the attackers here. We shall see how this goes. Actually, you can see over here as well that a big charge has happened very, very quickly over here as Umbar has actually moved forward and is taking the lead on this side of things, but a combination of Sylvan Spears and Lothlorien Blades should be sufficient to hold this line down for a little while longer, especially against Belagaia Footmen and Corsair Warriors. They do have the armour upgrade, which will make them just that little bit tougher in melee, but in terms of quality, the Lothlorien Blades are so much stronger than the Umbar forces that are being massed against them. Umbar do have a fairly decent amount of numbers themselves, however, with the Corsair Warriors that they have brought in this battle so far. And the Corsair Archers are getting into position as well to try and skirmish, but again, Lothlorien have got a lot of quality over here. The Lothlorien Archers, generally speaking, cheap archers can be very, very efficient. But even still, with this amount of quality arrayed against them, Umbar's skirmishers will still struggle to gain a foothold here against the Elves and the Dunedain from Arthedain. Speaking of which, I did notice the frames drop there, and that is a telltale sign of a lot of body-piercing arrows being loosed. The Lothlorien Mounted Company are here. You can see this front line is still waiting. Snarger Stalkers in position. Some Hobbit Slingers in place as well, but obviously you can see here the Grey Company. Body-piercing arrows shooting into the large blobs over there. A little bit concerned, of course, that this could cause a crash, but nonetheless, arrows flying backwards and forwards. Lothlorien holding for now, but actually the numbers are proving to be a bit of a problem. Quality-wise, Lothlorien are far in excess of what Umbar have fielded forward to the front line so far. Castamir's Legion could put up more of a fight against Lothlorien Blades, of course, even though they'd still probably lose that. But yeah, there's not a lot of infantry nearby that would reinforce this line, which is actually a good opportunity for Umbar to try and punch through and wrap up the line quickly. They will take heavy losses doing so, but I think it would be a worthwhile endeavour. Meanwhile, over here, the Hobbit Slingers throwing their rocks into the Snarger Stalkers, Angmar being a little bit too conservative here. Now that Umbar have moved forward and Hunter Wayward has really gone in on Lothlorien, Angmar need to do the same on this choke point here against Arthedain. They have the tools to do so as well. Guardians of Khan Doom in conjunction with Barrow-wights are such a difficult thing to get rid of. Meanwhile, over here, the Eastron clansmen have moved forward to try and cover for the Variag mercenaries, who were getting shot by the Orc archers anyway. Oof, that frame drop. The Orc fodder are moving in. But the Eastron clansmen will block the way, and the Eastron clansmen, especially with the armour upgrade, will be far stronger than Orc fodder, but it is a question of numbers here as Inarius is pouring forward several hundred Orc fodder. It's only a single unit of Eastron clansmen which is standing in the way, and I don't think... Yeah, see, these archers are out of range, which is the problem with forward deploying on Rivendell. You cannot use these archers up on the cliffs when they're that far away, which is why I don't really think it's worth defending this bridge 9 times out of 10. Unless the attackers are being extremely conservative and sort of dribbling in one unit at a time, there's really no need. Another unit of Eastron clansmen is coming forward now. The Variag mercenaries are still being engaged in melee, unfortunately for them, by a few of these units of Orc fodder. With a second unit of Eastron clansmen, Rune should be able to salvage this situation, but even so, it's not ideal for Rune. And as the defenders, you need ideal engagements more often than not to overcome a numbers disadvantage, especially when the Barrow-wights are involved in 0.96.1. With these frame drops, Numenorian Shield Guard are finding their way to the front line now, as well as Castamir's Legion. Decent hits there from the Elven Catapult, a small amount of friendly fire, which is going to be a problem here, but primarily killing the Umbar forces, and causing breaks among the lower tier of Umbar units. But now Umbar is sending forward quality, including Corsair fences, so this is a sign. Lothlorien are starting to sort of get a handle on this engagement now that more Lothlorien spears are being committed forward to hold the line, which is good to see. Obviously you need to be aware of when you're starting to lose an engagement, and again, if the attackers do push in to the city itself, I do think that's kind of game over, because the attackers have certainly got the numbers to take advantage of the several pathways that the interior of Rivendell offers you. Evendim archers are moving forward. They're out of ammunition by the looks of things, so they're just going to act as meat shields on the front line, which again is good to see. You know, just more mass from the front line. You can see here that I think the Numenorean Shield Guard are trying to get into Shield Wall and are trying to push through the front line. Numenorean Shield Guard have got very high defensive stats, but overall the Lothlorien Spears, I believe, are the superior unit when it comes to killing power in melee. Still though, you can see some Minas Garithlin archers from Cardland have made their way over here to try and support the Umbar skirmishers, so the skirmishers have gotten a decent position here. I mean, the quality is not on their side, but you can see they're all going after the catapult, and that's a good move, because this catapult I don't think is going to be able to get out of range quickly enough. And the catapult's already done a decent amount of damage, but you would say if the defenders are to have a chance in this battle, they need the catapult to do even more than it's already done, which does mean they need to get out of there. The catapult crew taking a lot of damage, but you can also see the Umbar managing to push their way through the lines. Castamir's Legion and Numenorean Shield Guard. They need more infantry, however, to consolidate their gains here. The Lothlorien Mounted Company are trying to charge in to contain this, but that was a very weak charge, and also with spears close by, it might not be the best of ideas to try and charge in like that. If you can't get a good charge off on spears, you really shouldn't bother. Walking into melee with them is exactly what they want. But unfortunately, really, for Umbar, they've managed to get through the lines, but they're engaging Lothlorien archers in melee, but heavy elven archers are more than capable of looking after themselves in melee, especially against depleted units like the Numenorean Shield Guard now are. So, honestly, while there is a gap in the line now, there are no infantry units nearby which are in a position to take advantage of that. So the defenders have managed to get away with one there, really. Meanwhile, down here, this front line still ongoing. The Gamphrim are nearby. Veriag mercenaries have set themselves up. Both units of Eastron clansmen are still holding back the hordes. There are some Morannon infantry on the front line now, which should be enough to overturn the Eastron clansmen, if only just. But again, it's a numbers game here. Eventually this runic front line is going to fall. It's just a question of whether or not it's going to be an efficient trade for Rune. You can see there the troll drummers are in the background. A lot of civilians also moving forward from Cardland. A lot of disposable units that have been brought by the Kingdom of Men. Again, I feel as though there's a firing squad up here, including Cabal, shadow bows and crossbows, that would be so lethal, but Rune keeps sending reinforcements to this less effective front line. So I feel as though that's a real mistake, I think. I'm just going to come out and say it. And that, you know, it's those sort of plays which could end up losing the battle for the defenders. We'll see though. Barrow Wights are starting to make their way to the front line. Angmar are now starting to put pressure on the primarily Arthedain choke point. Evendim spearmen, Arthedain pikemen, Fornoster range defenders as well, so the more heavily armoured spearmen. Combination of spears and pikes, not likely to get a lot of killing done particularly quickly, and especially seeing as the Barrow Wights, even the best of infantry, struggles to kill the Barrow Wights quickly. This Angmar front line is likely to, or this Angmar assault is likely to keep going for quite some time. But it is a difficult Arthedain choke point to wear down. The Hobbit Slingers throwing their pebbles. Those Guardians of Kharn taking a real beating. Not enjoying life so much at the moment. Belagai footmen have actually managed to push their way through the lines as well. Dunedain Mounted Company, once again, cavalry being used to try and shore up the lines. Infantry has now started to move forward, so this is where the defenders are going to have to react to this, because Umbar are now sending forward infantry to take advantage of this. This breach has remained in place, and Umbar are still going to be able to take advantage of it. They're going to send in some infantry over here to engage this elven flank, which was actually mostly victorious, but now with fresh Numenorean Shield Guard and fresh Castamir's Legion, that fight is likely to turn around pretty quickly. The only support the elven spears have are Evendim archers that are out of ammunition, not the sort of unit which is needed on the front line at this point. There are some Lothlorien axes moving forward. There are also some Lothlorien archers that are out of ammunition. A little bit more like it. Some civilians from Cardland as well, so numbers certainly coming forward to this choke point. Oh, excuse me. Arrows flying back and forth still. Castamir's Legion very difficult to get rid of when they're in a situation like this, but the momentum is with Umbar now, and the defenders are being too slow reacting to this. Far too slow. Here we can see the Barrow Wights, you can see some Gwathlo trackers getting into position as well. They've actually pulled out their hatchets, so I would imagine they've already expended their ammunition. More Emmendon Spearmen heading to the front line. I mean, the Barrow Wights are here, but it's only a single unit of Barrow Wights, and they're only backed up by Goblin Band. So they will probably be pinned in place by these pikes pretty much indefinitely. I think the battle will probably be decided elsewhere, in all honesty. Oof, dear. Now you can see that the Olag Kai are coming forward. This might be a blessing in disguise for Rune, because it might convince them of the futility of sending more reinforcements over here, which I think is a terrible mistake, honestly. I think it might be the sort of thing which does cost the defenders the game, and they're still sending forward more reinforcements. They need to stop. They need to get these archers in line. If they keep sending forward more infantry to reinforce that front line, they're going to have nothing to defend their archers when it comes to this area.
We have lost half of our men.
And there's so much power bound up here as well. Several units of crossbows, rangers, basic archers as well. They had javelins back there as well, but the javelins are moving forward now, and the javelins are easily going to be engaged in melee. You know, the javelin... Oof, dear. Terrible plays. The Olag Kai have taken some damage on the way through, but the Balchor Tribesmen utterly wasted, as the Olag Kai are going to be able to just smash them into submission in melee. Yeah, very, very poor battlefield awareness from the Runic player so far, I have to say. Over here. More Barrow Wights on the way forward. Gwathlo trackers in melee as well. Obviously not really their forte, but still. Pressure is being kept up on this front line. And this, it must be said, is where the attackers are having the most joy so far. Even though they can take advantage of Rune's poor judgment on the other side of things, that hasn't come to fruition just yet. Whereas over here, Castamir's Rangers, now in Iron Royal Guard, maybe being a bit gung-ho with their skirmishes there, but they are starting to push into the settlement. Sindar Archers getting in the way. I mean, the Dunadai Mountain Company trying to charge in, but again, not the best charge there. And they are starting to take losses as well. If they can get a clean charge, then maybe, but well, there are some Maita Ilazgalan back here as well. There's still a lot of skirmish power also. Sylvan Rangers as well, that body piercing could really come in handy, so there is a danger that Umbar could overextend themselves here. Maita Ilazgalan. This Umbar push is certainly taking a lot of damage. You can see here that the elves have finally been dealt with here. Miniscarithan archers pushing in. Brazanim Nadubawib. Are there any more infantry units though? They need more infantry over here, and I think that is now starting to be the responsibility of Angmar and Cardinal, because Umbar have already committed forward a lot of themselves to making this ground. Making up this ground, I should say. And now they need a little bit of help from their allies. They need their allies to come forward and give them a hand. Dunadai Mountain Company trying to sort of slip behind enemy lines and charge into the skirmishes, but again, it's several of them are going to die doing this. I'm going to go after the Castamir's Rangers, which is definitely the right move. Try and rob the enemy of their body piercing. Lothlorien Spear is very depleted, but it's all hands on deck really here to try and stop the Umbar push. The Sindar Archers' defeat seems certain. That surprises me. In melee they should be more than enough to deal with what's coming at them, and I would imagine that will flip pretty soon. Looks like the catapult is dead, which is a big problem for Lothlorien, unless they abandoned the artillery piece and retreated the catapult crew, which they did. There are only 4 of them left, but that is still enough to mount at least 1 of the artillery pieces, possibly 2. Maita Ilazgalan are here. Galathan Riders, looks like they're out of ammunition. They're very robust in melee as well, but again, there's spears all over the place. The trolls are starting to come forward now as well, and their charge is not great either. Horse archers only have a charge of 1 after all. Meanwhile, this runic front line has been smashed to splinters by Mordor, and Rune now finally doing what I think they should have done much earlier. They shouldn't have committed anything more than their Eastron clansmen to that front, and they're forming up a front line over here. Oh, excuse me. And they have their skirmishes in position as well. Civilians just out in front there. But yeah, all quiet for the time being. These Scionrim better not be trying to charge out all on their lonesome. Narim also trading back and forth with the Mordor and possibly Cardalan skirmishes. They're over there as well. Barrow Wights in the meantime just sort of slowly going about their grisly work. There's arrows just flying backwards and forwards once again. Minuscarithlan archers from Cardin. Cardin, interestingly enough, seems to have committed a lot more of their forces over here so far, including their trebuchet. Could be a real power play as well. But I do feel as though you can see the trolls that are over here as well. Maitha Ilaz-Galan and Galatharan nobles trying to stop them. The Sylvan Rangers are firing in as well. Those body-piercing projectiles that the Sylvan Rangers have could be of paramount importance, but they're being used to trade with other archers, which is really not the purpose behind Rangers. Rangers, you want to look at a big old blob of infantry and shoot into them. You definitely don't want to be going after other archers that are in loose formation. And to be fair, the attackers are making that mistake as well, but it's more critical that the defenders make good use of their archers, which, well, their Rangers I should say, which they haven't so far. Wardens of the North moving forward. They have, of course, their mighty steel bows, but they are utilising their long swords for the time being to try and kill off these trolls, which is needed. These trolls are making it very difficult for the defenders to form up a good skirmish block back here to really try and counteract the Umbar push. More Angmar forces are now moving into position, the Angmar Marauders, who are already shaken. The Dunedain Peacekeepers have managed to come in here as well as the Dunedain Rangers to shore up this front line, and yeah, they've managed to stabilise things somewhat here, the defenders, but still it's going to be difficult, I think, for the defenders at this point. There have been too many things they've done which haven't been efficient so far, which, especially considering Angmar and their Barrow-wights, the attackers, quite frankly, don't need to put that much effort in this sort of battle in 0.96.1 because of the Barrow-wights. They're so tanky, so difficult to get rid of, that the defenders need to utilise so much of their skirmish power to stop them. Thankfully that won't be the case in 0.97. Hobbit Slingers are trying to do their best, but Hobbit Slingers have got only 2 missile damage. It is armour piercing, to be fair, but 2 missile damage is very, very low. Meanwhile, Scourge Raiders on the front line as well. The Grey Company, which I would assume are out of ammunition based on how aggressively they're being used, but they are going to charge back here and get in and amongst the Castamir's Rangers. Corsair Archers also a pretty good target to go after. They will, of course, be focused down by archers pretty quickly. Are the Grey Company going to be able to get a rear charge? They will. The Angmar Marauders are already shaken.
If we remain true and wholehearted, victory will be ours.
You can see there that the Grey Company, naturally, only a charge bonus of 1 on horse archers. If that had been anything else, even melee cavalry probably would have been enough to send those Angmar Marauders routing, but as it is, the Grey Company have been neutralised. And I don't think they were able to really lay down as much damage as they could, as mounted rangers can. Aberdeen Spears here. These Trolls of Gundabad have really pushed a long way into the settlement. Look at how far they've managed to get. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of these defensive units are chasing after them and getting further and further away from the front line. So, yeah, I mean, if this is a purposeful ploy by the Angmar player, very well done, because the defenders have fallen for a hook, line and sinker. Look at all of these units which are just trailing after them. Evendim Spears, Wardens of the North, Galatharan Riders. Those Evendim Spears are routing, to be fair, but the Maitha Ilaz-Galan are back here as well. So many units being tied up by just 2 trolls, and that, of course, is going to be all they need to attack this front line without fear of too much reprisal from enemy ranged units or reinforcements. And to be fair, the Dunedain Peacekeepers are doing a good job at holding so far.
But our men are winning the battle and forging a worthy victory.
Pretty hefty assault going on over here, though. The Black Legion of Barad-dûr pushing all the way up to here, but immediately breaking when they get to the foothills. And again, this is why Rune should have been taking advantage of this position sooner, because you can now see, look at the power that this position offers you. The Rangers, the crossbows, and the archers in fantastic positions, and this runic assault has been utterly broken. Minas Morgul Chosen breaking, Sauron's Will getting decimated, the Olag Kai also falling by the wayside pretty quickly. Of course, Rune have got a lot of AP which can help facilitate that. But yeah, well, there goes the Umbar General. This is a good thing, however, for the defenders. I mean, you can see now that Cardin are moving forward, but they don't really have the strength at this point, the attackers. Certainly they don't have the reinforcements close enough to charge in here and do much damage to this runic choke point anymore, which is why I think they should have really taken up this position sooner. But still, Rune now making up for their earlier losses and sending Mordor packing, which is exactly what the defenders need. You know, so this engagement over here has turned from being slightly out of their favour to fully in their favour, and Rune could have a big part to play as the battle continues. Galathrun riders trying to get in and out. Abrazani and Nadubawi getting into position now. They still have their bows out, which means they still do have some ammunition, but they're also now being focused down by all sorts of ranged threats, as well as the Grey Company, and they're not in loose, they're in a very densely packed formation, which is why they were shaken for a little while there. They're being held in place by the out of ammunition Sylvan Rangers. Those Dunedain Peacekeepers still doing a resolute job of holding on to this front line. We'll see how long that lasts. Castamir's Rangers over here, Mercenary War Chiefs from Cardland moving forward as well, heavy swordsmen, but they're also being focused down. A lot of damage being done to them very, very quickly by the Grey Company. Over here, meanwhile, you can see the Barrow-wights still standing firm, being joined on the front line by Miniscarithan archers, at least better than Gwathlo trackers on the front line just because of their armour and shields. Merc War Chiefs as well, heavy swordsmen.
It is unwise to praise the day before sunset, but our men are winning the battle and forging a worthy victory.
Indeed. Heavy swordsmen, good backup for Barrow-wights. Offsets their lack of damage quite nicely. And there the Cardland Trebuchet also being wheeled into the settlement. We'll see what they're able to do. There's a fairly hefty clump of Dunedain Peacekeepers, which a direct hit would be pretty devastating, honestly, if the Trebuchet so chooses to go after them. Ugh. More reinforcements on the way forward, though. Those Evendim spears, which were distracted by the trolls, are now moving in, but we'll see. Dismounted Knights of Annúminas also coming forward in force. Wardens of the North. Might be time, honestly, to start loosing their arrows into something. Because I do feel like this engagement is getting away from the defenders a little bit here. Ever since Umbar really came forward in force and started to smash into the lines, oh, that's a devastating hit as well. There's Carmel's Chosen over here, but I think, yeah, there's a few dead Carmel's Chosen in there. There's a few dead Wardens of the North in there. A few dead Dismounted Knights of Annúminas in there. Actually, no dead Wardens of the North, just Dismounted Knights of Annúminas, but still. Ever since Umbar did move forward, the defenders have never really been able to organise their front line all that effectively. And you can see here this Trebuchet is just devastating this Arthedain forces, and they're just walking. Why would you do this? You're under Trebuchet fire. Run! Your fatigue isn't going to matter when you're all crispy and dead. The Barrow-wights, again, just slowly but surely grinding down the lower tier Arthedain front line. Carmel's Chosen will be a welcome sight on this front line. Certainly a welcome sight for the Trebuchet as they carve through them. Yeah, devastating really. I mean, to be fair, the attackers have run out of steam a little bit with regards to their infantry over here, so the Trebuchet could be charged down in melee, but the Trebuchet's done such a hefty amount of damage to good units as well. Carmel's Chosen, Dismounted Knights of Annúminas. Here come the Annúminas Gate Guards, but, you know, not a lot of infantry is forthcoming from the attackers at this point. And you can see that based on the minimap, most of the attackers actually seem to be sort of stretched out along this road over here, which is probably the last place they want to be honest with you. And Rune are making a mistake here, I think. They're playing into the hands of the attackers by abandoning their defensive position once again. Especially seeing as they don't have any pikes with which to answer the Wardens of Tir Gorthard, so... And there's crossbows in position there. Rune were doing such a good job at doing so much damage to Mordor, and they're making the same mistake again, trying to engage too far forwards. And if these crossbows get into a good position to fire, all of Rune's gains will be wiped out. We'll see. Forward move the Annúminas Gate Guards. Over here, being aggressive is definitely what it's called for, because they need to deal with the Trebuchet, which they have. They forced the Trebuchet crew off. The Trebuchet's already done a decent amount of damage. Galathrun Nobles as well, but this attack over here has fallen off. Abrazani and Nadubawi are now routing. We can see here the second unit of Angmar Trolls, the Trolls of Angmar, moving in, and they're going to be able to do a lot of damage to these low tier spears and these pikemen. Trolls are fantastic, of course, at breaking pike formations. And this could be the second big push. More reinforcements are needed over here. And unfortunately, I think, yeah, I mean, Illuminous Gate Guards are not the reinforcements they need, because as I just said, trolls are good at dealing with pikes. Barrow Wights are over here. Angmar Marauders are charging over there, but, well, I mean, as we go down through the valley, Angmar Marauders are not going to be able to defeat Galathram Nobles. There's also the presence of the Grey Company. There's Dismounted Knights of Illuminous as Carmel's chosen. I'm not really sure what these Angmar Marauders hope to achieve, other than tying up these elite units for a little bit longer, allowing the Angmar forces on the other side to push through, which they have. Galathram Riders, yeah, those trolls of Angmar.
They have lost half their men.
Doing the business, causing the Arthedain front line to collapse. Again, the Barrow Wights wearing them down, and then the hammer blow that the trolls offer. Galathram Riders charging in, but there's going to be very little that they're going to be able to accomplish. You can see the Barrow Wights being pushed out the way by the trolls.
Rally them, or victory runs away on their heels.
So that's Umbar gone. Umbar did a lot of heavy lifting to get their allies into the settlement, and now it's up to their allies to try and take advantage of that. Meanwhile, over here, the ill-fated runic sally out has already gone about as well as you would expect. A combination of Cardolan pikemen and elite Mordor infantry forcing the Golden Boys to retreat. And I think actually, Rune, you can see they have actually been forced to abandon this position, which is unsurprising because at this point there's such a big threat coming over here that the Angmar forces, combined with a bit of Cardolan support, could just wash over and take the town centre. The Rune have retreated to try and defend the city itself. Trolls of Angmar doing their thing.
If we remain true and wholehearted, victory will be ours.
Javelins being loosed. Dunedain peacekeepers marching into place. Guardians of Khan Doom also marching into place. Numerous Gate Guards getting shot a little bit in the back by some javelins. So here we can see some runic reinforcements have arrived, although they're probably going to need more than that on this front line to hold. Eastron Clansmen, again, very strong for militia. Guardians of Khan Doom are a dedicated heavy line infantry unit. One of my favourites in its class as well, just because of how survivable it is and how robust it makes the Angmar army when they're there in force. Galathram nobles hovering. The Dunedain Rangers are here, however. And with the collapse of this assault over here, they are going to be able to shift across all of their elite units, including, of course, the mighty dismounted Knights of Illuminous. The Galathram nobles are here as well. Carmel's Chosen really took a beating from that trebuchet, but still, just 20 of them could be enough to do some good damage. The Barrow Wights are here. The Trolls are here. What is going on over here? The runic reinforcements are here now. The Carmel's Shadow Bows ripping into the back of the mercenary war chiefs from Cardolan. The Flagrim pinning them in place from the front at AP will come in handy against the chain that the Mercs wear.
Our army is tired.
Eastron crossbows are in place as well, which, again, just firing as much ammunition as you can into the Barrow Wights is probably the way to go here, and that is exactly what Rune are doing, wearing them down. The Orc Javelins from Mordor are in place, however, firing into the side of the Flagrim, doing a decent amount of damage to them. Of course, Orc Javelins very, very cheap. What is going on here? Oh, excuse me. Still some runic forces up here, and actually, a bit of a rear guard might be exactly what's called for here. I know I was critical of Rune earlier, but they're making the most of their situation here. The Eastron crossbows killing off the Wardens of Tir Gorthar. This army over here honestly needs to really hurry up. The Mordor and Cardolan forces need to start attacking the defenders from the rear, because as it is, Angmar are going to run out of steam here. There's no support anymore from Umbar, very limited support from Cardolan and Mordor. And there's Elven and Arthedain elites, and Runic elites over here. And the Barrow Wights can absorb a great deal of punishment. They've already been in melee for so long, and now they're being forced to go up against the cream of the crop when it comes to Arthedain and Lothlorien infantry. Wardens of the North, Dismounted Knights of Illuminous, Galathram nobles. They're going to fall away here, the Barrow Wights. There's also the support from the Dunedain Rangers. Over here there are some Witch Realm Hammer Guard, as well as the Cardin and Trebuchet crew, which the Cardin and Trebuchet, if it gets a shot into that nice big blob over there, it could be absolute devastation, which I think is what they're going for. But unfortunately for them, they need to do it quickly, because these Witch Realm Hammer Guard are essentially throwing themselves in the way as meat shields. The Trebuchet crew has also been engaged by the Grey Company. It's now or never for the Trebuchet, and it could come down to this for the attackers, honestly. If they get good volleys off into those elites, they're so tightly packed together, it could win them the game. If they don't, however, those elites could be their downfall. Trebuchet is now firing. The Grey Company is in the backfield. They need to try and prevent it from firing. Even if it means their death, the Grey Company, they need to stop the Trebuchet from firing while that blob is still there. Here we go. Not a telling hit. They need to hurry because the Barrow Whites are on their last legs. They need to hit right in here. Dunedain Peacekeepers, Galathran Nobles, Warns of the North, Dismounted Knights of Illuminus could be devastation from them. I think actually that the Grey Company, they are trying to prevent the Trebuchet from firing, which they have managed to do. At great personal cost, because they had to charge through the Hammer Guard, who butchered them, of course. The Trebuchet crew is now dismounting as well. And with the... well, it looked like the Wards of the North were on their way over here to try and engage them in melee, but... it could be the end for the Grey Company. The Trebuchet is needed, though, and I think, yeah, the door's going to close before the Trebuchet is going to be able to move in here. Rune are on the way, with more reinforcements. There goes the Angmar General. Ripped open by a Galathran Noble. Over here, meanwhile, Loknar Rim getting in the way of the Mordor and Cardlan advance. Warns of Tir Gorthad and Minas Morgul Bodyguard fighting in tandem. The Nar Rim are just here as a delaying measure, however. Getting across these bridges can be a real pain. You know, Medieval 2 bridges have always been a nightmare when it comes to pathfinding, but I think they need to do this. They need to, they need to just get through the bad pathfinding and get into the rear of these defensive positions. Because up here, it's going to take them far too long to get through. I'm sure they could if they concentrated their forces, Cardlan and Mordor, but Rune know what they're doing here. And unfortunately, for the attackers, Angmar's army is pretty much gone. They've got a few Barrow Whites here and there, as you would expect, but no. When I say that, they do still have a presence over here. The Witch Realm Hammer Guard and the Tharbad Warhammers together are armour-piercing infantry at its finest. But I think at this point it's a question of numbers. They're just going to be overwhelmed, even if they can do a decent amount of damage. The aqua colours of the Tharbad Warhammers. And to be fair, like, the defenders need to commit forward more than this. Like, the Dismounted Knights of Illuminus, exactly the sort of unit the Tharbad Warhammers can do huge amounts of damage to. The Galathran Nobles are also very depleted at this point, so a combination of these two elite Angmar and Cardlan forces might be enough to win this fight for them. More reinforcements are on the way now. Galathran Riders also trying to charge into the rear. How much damage they will do, however, will be fairly limited. Do they have any ranged units they can use which can do the business? I don't think so. You can see there are still Barrow Whites just in and amongst the town. But I don't think they're going to get to... I mean, they could do damage to the Baltroth Tribesmen, I suppose, who still have ammunition. Carmel's chosen are here as well. Been in melee for so long at this point, though, the Barrow Whites. They must be running low on hit points, and they are starting to fall away pretty quickly. Still some Illuminous Gate Guards as well. I don't know, there's still a decent amount of enemy forces that need to be dealt with. You can see that Mordor have managed to navigate the perils of the bridge pathfinding here. And now Temple Executioners, Numenorian Shadow Guard, Temple Guard, and Troll Drummers are in the settlement. There's not a lot over here that can stop them. I mean, there's Eastron Crossbows, but they'll be engaged in melee soon enough. And Eastron Crossbows, of course, very poor in melee, especially in comparison to the Mordor skirmishes that are arrayed against them. Getting a decent volley there into the side of the Temple Executioners, though. Mordor need to be decisive here. They can't afford to dilly-dally. They need to get into melee as quickly as they possibly can and shut down these strong crossbows, lest they be punished for it. Meanwhile, what's happening up here? Niskarithdan sharpshooters moving forward, the crossbows getting into place, and this will allow them to get some very telling volleys off onto these defensive formations, should they so choose, unless they do go after the Eastron crossbows. But Eastron crossbows have pulled out their daggers, so not the best of shots that the crossbows have available to them, but they are at least forcing Rune to come forward, abandoning their cushy defensive position that they have. What's going on here? The Troll Drummers are getting into melee, preventing the Eastron crossbows from firing, but Troll Drummers are, I think, alongside the Troll Catapult crew, they might be slightly better than the Troll Catapult crew actually, but they're still not very good in melee in comparison to the other Trolls. I'd be surprised if they didn't have enough in them to kill the Eastron crossbows though. Temple Guard, Carnival Shadowbows, looks like they're out of ammunition actually, pulling out their scimitars. Meanwhile, what is happening on this engagement over here? Evenly matched fight so far. Again, I still think that in terms of sheer numbers, the Witch-Arm Hammerguard and the Tharbad Warhammers will eventually be overcome, but they will take their toll on these units. Lothlorien and Arthedain won't have an awful lot left, which means it may come down to Rune more than anything else. Barrow-wights still sort of just having a nice tour through the town. These Troll Drummers starting to fall away a little bit. Are they being shot by something? I mean, there's one to the north right there, so possibly. What's going on over here? Engagements now. Temple Executioners, of course, are just going to tear their way through Balchoth Tribesmen very, very easily. The Grey Company are going to charge into the Numenorian Shadow Guard. There's only 2 of them left, so I can't imagine they're going to be alive much longer, and there they go. So, as if on cue, here come the Carmel Shadowbows to try and support the Balchoth Tribesmen in melee, but it's not going to go very well for them. Even with the support of the Carmel Shadowbows, this is still a fight the Temple Executioners will win. Actually, this fight up here on the cliffs may very well prove to be pretty decisive, because if Rune have reinforcements they can bring back down to the town, it might be a defensive victory, but if they don't, it's going to be very, very ugly, I think. Minas Morgul Bodyguard and Wards of Tyr and Gorthad still fighting on the front line, but the rest of what they've got up here is mostly skirmishes, so Rune could use their infantry here to systematically work their way through. Although I say that, there are some Dunedain captains up here, which may very well be enough to tilt this fight in favour of the attackers once more. Still some Variag mercenaries back there. They've been involved in the fighting for quite some time, but not for much longer, I don't think. Carmel's Shadow Guard. Carmel's Chosen. Looks as though they're finally going to kill off these Barrow-wights. Good for them. And over here, amongst the corpses, where Umbar basically sacrificed themselves to try and give their allies an opening, and they weren't quick enough to take it, I think, the attackers, and if they do go on to lose this fight, I think that will be the primary reason why. Yeah, I think, you can see here the Tharbad Warhammers now, defeat seems certain. A good last stand, but ultimately that is going to be the end of Cardlan and Angmar's joint assault over here, which will bring it down to Mordor and Cardlan's attack on the other side of the settlement. And I don't know, I think the defenders may very well have this. Having a look at the percentage of kills, yeah, the attackers only have 8% of their armies left, whereas the defenders have got double that, 16%. And they've got some decent elite units left alive as well. It could come down to how well Cardlan can use their crossbows as well. We shall see. Carmel's Chosen, victory seems certain for them. You can see here the Temple Executioners are just butchering the Balchoth Tribesmen and the Carmel Shadowbows, now getting into melee with the Mighty Ilasgal, and there's some body-piercing projectiles coming in. A second unit of Carmel's Chosen, I didn't realise there were 2 that Rune had brought. But Temple Guard and Numenorian Shadow Guard put together, that's body-piercing and armour-piercing. So their hit points are going to be expended very, very quickly. Here come some Wardens of the North as well. Dunedain Rangers getting in position. They still have their bows, which Rangers at this late stage of the game could be a real game changer. Ooh, here we go. Cardlan pushing their way forward. Manatar, Romen Guardians. There's a lot of power still bound up in these Cardinal units up on the hill. Hearthguard of Amon Sul, Dunedain captains, but they're sort of stuck up here, fighting these runic units, which are honestly not that important. Mordor, on the other hand, are in the settlement, and they will desperately need help pretty soon. Warns of the North are shooting. Luminous Gate Guards. Meanwhile here, Temple Guard, what are they shooting at? Going after those Might Ilaz Galen. It's a straight duel now between the Temple Executioners and the Carmel's Chosen. Carmel's Chosen have 10 more unit models here, but the Temple Executioners are by far the stronger combatant. So I would expect, honestly, the Temple Executioners... Well, I say that, they have been hit by pebbles and projectiles of all sorts, really, the Temple Executioners. So the Carmel's Chosen here, victory seems certain. So that's a bit of an answer. I mean, yes, the Temple Executioners have taken a bit of damage, but Carmel's Chosen still giving them the business in melee. Carmel's Chosen also took a really grisly volley from the Númenórean Shadow Guard as well. At this point, the Númenórean Shadow Guard are being hounded by some Balchoth tribesmen. Still over 10,000 frames left. The Sindar Archers are still here as well. Fine margins here. Some Hobbit Slingers. Hobbits doing their thing. What's going on over here? Yeah, these reinforcements. I think the defenders might have this, you know. I think they're just going to be... I mean, they are... It's starting to pull back a little bit, the gap, but I think the defenders, if they can crush Mordor here as quickly as they're able, then they should be able to form up a good united front against what's left of Cardolan. Here come the Warns of the North as well. Those Carmel's Chosen made very quick work of the Temple Executioners, actually. The Warns of the North only just arriving in melee. I mean, they don't have the armour upgrade, but that still puts the Temple Executioners on the same level as something like the Haven Guard. Temple Guard, meanwhile, obviously not quite as strong in melee, but they're still not to be underestimated, and this unit of depleted Carmel's Chosen is being butchered. They are preventing the Temple Guard from shooting, which may be the primary aim. Those Balchoth tribesmen, the banner carrier is now the only one left. Númenórean Shadow Guard in place. Being shot still in the back by the Sindar Archers, the Hobbit Slingers are shaken. Hobbit Slingers reloading. Pulling more pebbles from the floor. Here come the Luminous Gate Guards as well, so Mordor have only got so much life left in them in this assault. Runa retreating, which is going to give Cardolan the ability to try and reinforce them as quickly as they're able. The unupgraded Dunedain captains leading the way. Still a very powerful unit, of course. And they've got their crossbows, which still have ammunition, so surrendering this high ground could yet prove to be a serious mistake. But a very interesting fight this, and it's certainly looking like it's going to be one of the closer fights on Rivendell that I've shown. Warns of the North. Here come the Sindar Archers, out of ammunition presumably, now just getting into melee. That will be enough to finish off this very depleted unit of Shadow Guard. Dual wielding. Some dismounted Knights of Numenus over here, so the very battered and bruised reinforcement column having been through the Witch-Realm Hammer Guard and Tharbad Warhammers, but still every little helps. And the Temple Guard are now being overwhelmed. Pikes, another fresh unit of Carmel's Chosen, and also they're being hit in the back by those pebbles. Here come the Dunedain Peacekeepers as well, leaving a nice gap for the Hobbit Slingers to continue fighting, but more reinforcements in melee. Defeat is almost a certainty. Warns of the North still waiting. A catapult, so the elves have managed to salvage their catapult. That could prove to be very, very key if they can get some telling blows on this Cardolan blob. But still, I think they're going for the Dunedain captains, which they're unlikely to hit them. If they do, then fair play, but yeah. Now behind the building, so that opportunity may very well have gone. But it is still something else which the attackers are going to need to go after. A good way perhaps to split the attackers' attentions. Temple Guard still fighting hard. Defeat still seems certain though. They're doing their best, but ultimately there wasn't enough manpower committed by Mordor down here. And I may very well have been quite critical of how Rune approached this fight initially, but they could end up being the ones which carry their team to victory here. Them and Arthedain are the ones that have decent portions of their army left, but there's still a lot of crossbows. A lot of crossbows from Cardland, and that itself could prove to be the difference. Catapult trying to go after the captains again. That was a hit, a grazing hit, but it is at least going to force Cardland to move. Narim trying to shoot in. Eastron crossbows engaging in a crossbow duel with Cardland, but that's something Cardland certainly have over Rune. Yeah, they need to finish off these Temple Guard quickly, because now that the Cardland crossbows are here, they need to find some way to engage them. The Hearthguard of Amon Sul are up on the hill as well. Dismounted Knights of Illuminus are here. Yeah, I mean, it's depleted units all around now, though. Catapult crew are here. Here come the Warns of Tirn Gorthad. You can see here they're trying to kill the catapult now with crossbow bolts. What are they going after? I mean, unfortunately for them, the crossbows are just behind the hill. If they could reposition the catapult here, just to try and get a solid blow on the crossbows more than anything else, I think they're going after the Warns of Tirn Gorthad, which they do. And they do score a hit. But the Warns of Tirn Gorthad, I think, are a lot morale. They're certainly a unit which inspires nearby forces. Maitha Ilazgalan trying to interrupt the crossbows along with the Sindar archers, but the Minas Morgul bodyguard are here, and there are simply too many of them. The Cardland crossbows certainly have the ability to look after themselves in melee. The Dunedain captains are also retreating, and that's Cardland's main hope at this point. They need to be more defensive, Cardland, hold that high ground which Rune gave to them, and try and kill as many enemies off with their crossbow bolts as they can. Very, very evenly matched, only 4% between them. And actually, I might change my prediction here. I think Cardland, I mean, they've still got the Hearthguard of Amon Sul. Their crossbows are decent in melee. They've got a good amount of power left. And with their positioning, if the defenders oblige them and try and charge into their crossbows, they're going to be in real trouble. A lot of arrow fire there going into the Hobbit slingers. Poor Hobbits. Little more than farmers throwing rocks. Here come the Warns of the North, the fancier looking version of the Dunedain captains when the Dunedain captains don't have their own armour upgrade. I don't know, it's going to be real close, regardless of what happens here. But if the attackers are going to attack, which it looks as though they're going to, I mean, this unit of Dunedain Rangers as well could prove to be very, very key. Body-piercing projectiles are important, and they're going after some Minas-Garuthan sharpshooters. I feared they were going to try and go after the Hearthguard of Amon Sul, who are the best unit to try and absorb that fire. Point blank crossbow bolts. There goes Haldir.
Our men have slain the enemy general. Now his men will lose heart.
Dismounted Knights of Illuminus very depleted though, and the Minas-Garuthan sharpshooters with those maces going to be able to do a decent amount of armour-piercing damage. Should be enough, honestly, to finish off those Knights of Illuminus. The Minotaur Roman Guardians, of course, much the same with the Halberdier trait they have. Armour-piercing polearms. Here come the Carmel's Chosen, who are pretty healthy, mind you. And let's not forget that the Illuminus Gate Guards are pikes, but look at that. Huge volley there from the Minas-Garuthan sharpshooters. Hearthguard of Amon Sul are here. Orc Archers still have their bows out, so they presumably still have a bit of ammunition as well. Dunedain captains from Cardland actually slipping behind enemy lines. Can Cardland pull this out? Some good units they have to face here. The Dunedain captains need to stop dawdling and rear-charge something. There goes the Mordor General. Carmel's Chosen doing their thing again. Here come the Dunedain captains, obviously pretty much the same unit model as the Dunedain Peacekeepers when they don't have the armour upgrades. Actually no, I mean they have a slightly different, well no, they have the same coloured vests really. Crossbows, arrow fire, I mean even if they do manage to get through here, it's another unit of sharpshooters. The Orc Archers are being engaged in melee now, and it's by Wards of the North, so they're going to get destroyed. There goes Mordor. Look at those Dunedain Rangers. I think the Hearthguard of Amon Sul at this point, as healthy as they are, the presence of that elite unit, as well as the Dunedain captains, yeah, I think Cardland are going to Turn this around, it's dead even now. And Cardlands could prove to be the hero of the day. And we're into pretty much the final 10,000 frames. Hobbit slingers are in the background there as well. There go the orc archers, but look at those crossbow bolts. So brutal. Minotaur on Guardians. Bounty forces is evenly matched. Whatever happened to the Dunedain captains, I wonder? Ah, there they are. Pretty depleted at this point, but they are helping to bring down the Carmel's Chosen. And with that phalanx that the Minotaur men Guardians are forming up, a good idea. The Numinous Gate Guards are still fighting, but they're very depleted. The Miniscarithan sharpshooters proving to be exactly what they need in melee in this situation. Those armor-piercing maces, and there is the Arthedain General in and amongst all of those mace men. Still a very bloody fight. Hobbit slingers trying to do their best. The Hearthguard of Amon-Sul at this point out of ammunition, which might be a blessing in disguise for Cardlan as they send forward another multiple HP infantry unit. And they're going to come forward and try and kill off the Hobbit slingers, or at least force them to run away. Oh dear. These guys are going to get skewered. Defeat is a distinct possibility. Defeat seems certain. Crossbow bolts whizzing all over the place. We've got over here just a couple of units of Variag mercenaries. That's not going to be enough to make enough of a dent, I don't think. Hearthguard of Amon-Sul prevent, and I think the Cardlan player at this point realises that if he can just prevent, I mean these are Hobbit slingers, I think even if they were in position it wouldn't be enough to turn this fight around at this point. Look at those crossbows, poor Hobbits. Blood spray. Yeah, and he realises that if there's no outside factors in this fight, Cardlan wins. They've simply got too much power left. There goes Arthedain's General. Warns of Tir Gorthar. Still a single Galathran noble. I say that just as he dies.
Our enemy has lost his stomach to fight. We must push our advantage.
Quite literally lost their stomach. He died. Nah, Rim, there's Dunedain Mounted Company perpetually routing. These perpetually routing units in the town centre, could they be the difference? I don't think so, because if everything is routing, oh, excuse me, then that just counts as defeat. They would need to be knocked back into combat by the Hearthguard of Amon-Sul. Hopefully the Cardlan player doesn't oblige them. Oh man, I hate allergy season. Now the unit of Miniscarithan sharpshooters are now being committed to melee. More infantry. I don't know why there's so long left in the fight, to be honest with you. Going up to times 2 speed. Oh no. They're going to make the mistake, I think.
Holy Mother, save us! Our enemy is in control of the fort.
If they knock all of these units back in, who knows? I mean, Cardlan, they don't have a huge army left themselves. Those Hobbit slingers are just going to be skewered to death now, though. Although I don't know, Cardlan still have enough sharpshooters, I think, enough armor piercing. They have some ammunition left as well. But it's not going to make too much of a difference. The Dunedain captains are on the way over to help reinforce. We're still fighting over here. The Wardens of the North, only 5 of them remaining. Very resilient unit, of course, in melee, as well as very damaging at range with those armor piercing arrows.
Our men no longer command the castle.
Very resilient indeed. What's going on here? So they are going to knock all of these units back into combat. Interesting choice. But, you know, these Hearthguard are still healthy enough, and there's nothing really elite back here, I suppose. Dunedain Mounted Company are perpetually routing just outside the town centre. Emendim Spearman, Scion Rim.
We are blessed.
There goes the Runic General.
Is dead. We have sent the idiot to hell.
Fairly substantial blow, and I think we will go up to ×2 speed, because really at this point it's just clean up for Cardland. So yeah, very topsy-turvy battle. Attackers started off pretty well. The defenders took control of the battle in the middle section, to be honest with you, but then late on, Cardland and those crossbows were the difference between the two sides, and they used them well. The defenders, they could have potentially used their resources a little bit more efficiently, and then they could have had more to try and answer those crossbows with towards the end, but it's always going to be difficult when you have to go up against that many Barrow Wights. But I actually think they did a pretty decent job of dealing with the Barrow Wights, honestly. Players admitted defeat. Let's just clean up for this point for Cardland. Fornoster Rain defenders have come back. Again, Cardland just slowly but surely working their way through all of these units, and they should be able to. I'd be very surprised if they ended up losing this fight. The Hearthguard of Amon Sul is still far too healthy. Very resilient unit indeed. They may be spears, so they may not be the finest killing machines in melee, but very, very resilient, and of course they buff the morale of the nearby Cardland forces. Very, very important for this faction. Slowly but surely, there's still a long way to go in this fight. We'll go up to ×6 speed, I think, actually. This isn't really too much of a spectacle anymore. But a very good fight. Big thank you to Hunter Wayward for sending this to me. I know it was quite a long time ago you sent this one in. But still, I appreciate it nonetheless. I do try and sort of spread out the map usage a little bit, which is why I haven't shown Rivendell for a little while. But obviously, after a week absence, I figured I would come back with a larger battle. And I think next up we'll be seeing an elf versus evil faction fight on the Pelennor fields, which should be quite interesting. Hopefully I'll be involved a little bit more myself as well. That is the plan moving forward. Skirmishes sharpshooters getting into position as well. Surrounding and crushing the Arthane pikemen. Skirmishes sharpshooters, of course, they may be AP, but they don't have the highest attack values. That should be that. I don't see anything else. Oh no, the Hearthguard of Amon Sul have decided to go after... No, they killed all the Grey Company. So what is there that's left? I can hear... Oh, I see. Fornoster Rain defenders. Oh dear, they're just going to get shot. Absolutely brutal. Very strange end to this battle. The battle was technically won like 5,000 frames ago. And there we go. Victory for Cardland. They are the only army left standing, interestingly enough. All of their allies.
Victory is ours, but only by a sword.
And there we go. So, Cardland proving to be the victorious member of their team. Mordor getting the most kills, and again, I think that comes down to the fact that Rune had the highest of all of the, the highest manpower of all the defenders, the highest manpower actually of all of the factions on the field today, which is interesting. It goes to show that, you know, Mordor and Angmar, they can go more quality focused. Umbar, they did have a few more numerous units, but obviously, you know, they paid for their very aggressive attack into the settlement. I don't think that was wrong from Umbar by any means, but their allies needed to follow them in a little bit more quickly, and that comes down, I think, more to Angmar than anyone else should have followed them. Only 500 kills from Angmar as well, so their Barrow Wights were locked up. Yeah, rough time for Angmar, it must be said. A lot of kills for Rune and Arthedain. Less for Lothlorien, actually, interestingly enough. What did the damage for Umbar, though? The Castmir's Rangers. Unsurprisingly, in a siege, Rangers are always going to get, you know, more kills than other units. Of course, there are archers with only a small amount over 100, but yeah, mostly ranged units. The only melee unit for Umbar that broke 100 kills was a unit of Corsair Fencers, obviously quite damaging. Naryn and Irogar getting just shy of 100 kills as well. But yeah, thank you to Hunter Wade for sending this one in. I know it's been a little while since you sent it to me, but here it is. Better late than never. And yeah, I should be in a position now where I will be doing regular videos once more. Perhaps even at a faster rate than I was able to previously, because I'm technically on summer break, but as I said, there's still a few bits and pieces I need to sort out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.